out that by using just one extra color, you could take your Dark Angels from looking boring and plain and like salamanders to looking super grim, dark, and epic. Well, after spending 6 months building and painting my Dark Angels army, going through different versions, I finally discovered what was holding my paint job back from reaching its grimdark perfection. So in this video, I'm gonna show you the perfect color palette to get a proper gothic and knightly look, breaking down each single step. I start with the base coat, and here I use a pretty dark base coat. I like my Dark Angels actually dark, and for that reason, I'm gonna use a base coat that's as close to black as it possibly can without actually being black. Next, after creating a middle tone, I add a little bit of pale yellow to create my first highlight color. And I start highlighting. We'll get more into the color part later in the video, so be patient, okay? Patience is the key to learn. The paint consistency here is like a strong glaze. When I apply the paint, you can see it slightly show through, and using this consistency allows me to use a little bit of feathering as well, so help me out with the cleaning stage later on. And in the most central areas of the highlight, I'll go over again with a second layer to give like full of opacity to that, because that's the highlight spot. I mix a fat glaze and I clean up the transition between the base coat and the first layer. Cleaning up is a back and forward kind of a deal. And the more you do it, the better you get at it. And the consistency that you use is gonna play a big role in how fast or how slow you go. In this case, I kinda missed the mark and my paint was way too thin, so it took way longer than it should have. But you know, it happens. You don't have to nail the consistency on the spot. You just need to test it on your model and being able to adjust it and not ignore it completely like I did in this case. I then go in with some edge highlights to bring readability and definition to the parts of the model. Some areas are tougher than others. The final step is to add even more pale yellow to the mix. Just push that contrast. In order to achieve the dark look that I wanted, it was useful for me to think about the green like I was painting black, especially in terms of light distribution. So distributing my highlights in smaller areas than usual. Is that clear? I don't know. I then take care of some other details like the chest eagle, purity seals, and blah 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 blah, the boring stuff. But still, it's worth mentioning that here I use a quicker and more simple approach to these other details. And this way you'll have more time to focus on the armor, clean up your blends, push the contrast more, or whatever you like and enjoy more. Before I reveal the palette that allowed me to achieve this cool look, let me show you what I did with the tunic. Which, you know, it's kind of an important part, being a Dark Angel, so... Here I tried a crisscross technique. So on the matte brown base coat, I start layering up with little lines, with a mix of the same brown plus buff, which is like a bonish color. Here I made a teeny tiny mistake, but let me tell you this first. It's good to cut yourself some space to practice new technique or texture effects or yada yada yada. And in this case, here is very low pressure, because even if you're not able to achieve the perfect pattern the first time, you will be able to, 1, practice it, and 2, cover it up with thin layers and still end up with something more interesting to look at, even if it doesn't perfectly reflect your expectations. It's also so important that you don't rush through this process. I kind of rushed it, and having kind of shaky hands thanks to anxiety, the lines were kind of meh. So if you have troubles with painting straight lines and being precise with your lines, it will just be enough for you to take a little bit more time to be careful with them. Plus, I figured never paint lines parallel to the cloth. Maybe that's obvious, but clearly wasn't for me. By painting diagonally, you make your life so much easier. That was my mistake. While I wrap this up, let me finally tell you what was the secret to Dark Angels that actually look like Dark Angels and not Salamanders. For many months, I looked at paint jobs that could satisfy the idea I had for Dark Angels. The only one I could find that was good enough for me was Richard Gray's. Nowhere else I could find a good-looking Dark Angels. That was frustrating. So I joined his Patreon, but I was missing the color he was using. Yeah, maybe you're thinking, no biggie, just tweak it. Use a dark green that you have. Let's say no. See, in this case, having the same paint was pretty fucking important. Some paint pots might look the same, but the thing is, we don't know which pigments are in them most of the times. And sometimes you're aware of the pigments only when you mix them with other colors. The dark greens I was using didn't have that one color, that one pigment that was making Richard Gray's version looking so good and working so much. They either add too much yellow or too much white. So, what is this goddamn color, you say? To find it, you just need to move in the opposite direction Salamander follow, which is yellow. What's on the other side? Blue. Dun, dun, dun. In this case, more turquoise. You need to create a phthalo green. You can use this black green like Richard did, but honestly, I think I have one better. I'm gonna show you how to mix it. It's real simple, so stick around if you wanna have Dark Angels that actually look dark. I used pro-acrylic paints for this. I just mixed 2 drops of jade with 2 drops of green, so a 1-to-1 ratio to achieve a phthalo green. Still, this needs to be darker in order to be our middle tone. So I'll mix in some black till I get this result. But for the base coat, I say,
go darker.
So that's why I mixed even more black till you get a mix that's very close to black but still not totally desaturated. And that's it. Once I had that figured out, I was able to paint my army in no time without having to think or be frustrated or blah blah blah. If you want to see more chapter painting in this style, click here. You won't be disappointed. That's my father's job.